Nānānandamayam devam nirmalaspatikākrutim ādhāram sarvavidyanam hayagrivam upasmahe. Namaste, welcome to Atharva Forum. We're going to continue our conversation with Professor R.N. Iyengar. In the last recording, we spoke quite a bit about the Vedic tradition and the astronomical skies observation in the Veda. We are going to take that conversation today. Professor Iyengar, thank you for being with us again, and really appreciate you giving us the time here.
Namaste.
Namaste. Professor, if you don't mind, just want to recap a little bit of what we spoke in the last episode, and then we can continue. We started off at the Vedic tradition, the observations of the sky, the movement of the sun, the movement of the moon, the importance of the Darsha Purnamasa in the understanding how the earth, the eclipse of the moon happens, and then knowing the phases of the moon as well. So those were very complex observations, must have been observed over a lot of time. Then we also spoke about the Taittiriya Aranyaka related to the Dhruva nakṣatra. Then they recognized in the pole star, which was previous to what we currently have. So that was an extremely important aspect, being in the Shishumara constellation. Then we also spoke about a little bit about meteors and comets, so which were very important aspects of the Vedic tradition. Then also, I think the important number you covered was about 3339, which is related again to the Darsha Purnamasa. So is this a correct understanding of what was in mainly the Aranyaka, the Saṃhitā and the Aranyaka text? Is that a good understanding?
Yeah, Mr. Subrahmanyam, what you say is true. Last time we covered what I would call the Vedic skies.
Right.
The Vedic skies was initially, we don't know when they started observing, maybe the 4th millennium BC or even earlier than that. Initially, it was disturbed. At least that is the feeling I get from the Rigvedic text and other texts. Disturbed means because of the maybe comets, maybe asteroid impacts, or maybe storms, whatever it may be, which led to a lot of difficulties. And that also encouraged people to look at the sky more carefully, to pray, of course, to the sky and to the deities, the unseen deities. Certainly, even today we do the prayers. They did that. That is, the cosmic prayer was always there. So the concept of cosmos, cosmology, and who are we? What is the connection between Earth and the universe? These questions are all there in the Vedic state itself, which, as per the Taittiriya Aranyaka, which I showed, they discuss the Shishumara and the Dhruva, belongs to the 3rd millennium BC. That is about 3000 BC. Let us say 3000 BC. So during the same period, a few other things also got developed, like the Meru model, because Dhruva was fixed. Whether it is possible that sun and moon, they may be going round Dhruva, and an imaginary Meru mount, Meru, something like an imaginary shaft which connects Earth with the sky, with the North Pole. All these things started in the 3rd millennium BC itself. And observation of moon and the Darsha Purnamasa, even though the text and the theory for them may be later, like the Shulba Sutras, they belong generally as accepted, they were written down. A group of these, because they belong to the Vedanga. They are not the Veda directly, they are the Vedangas. The Kalpas are the Vedangas, the sacrifices, and the Dhruva, I told you, Dhruva Sthali, and how if the Dhruva Sthali is displaced, they may be able to even displace a powerful person or an emperor, that kind of thing. That was all there in the 3rd millennium, transition to the 2nd millennium BC. Now, I feel that in the 2nd millennium BC, we are already coming to the Vedanga period. I can't fix up exactly the dates, but it is a transition. There would be overlapping, lot of overlapping between Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and other Vedas, and also the Vedangas. So your summing up is correct. So the Vedic period, what we see directly in the Vedic texts, proper Vedas as such, which comprises of the Saṃhitas, the Brahmanas, and to some extent the Aranyakas, are the Vedas, what we in India would traditionally recognize as Veda. Now the Vedanga period comes next. So your summing up is very good.
Okay. If I may, so the Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa, you are going to talk about Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa of Lagadha. We have come up to Lagadha now, right? Is that so? Information that we have, observations, are they in the Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa of Lagadha also?
Oh, no. This is a very loaded question. That is, what was happening between the third millennium BC and the second millennium BC? Second millennium would be something like, let me say, 1300, 1400 BC. Now, Lagadha's Jyotiṣa is popularly called Vedanga Jyotiṣa. It was published about 100 years back. At that time, Jyotiṣa is one of the Vedangas was known, but there was no other known text as Vedanga Jyotiṣa. So everybody started calling Lagadha's calendar. See, Lagadha's calendar, there are two calendars. One is called the Archa Jyotiṣa, that is a Rigvedic calendar. Second one is the Yajusha Jyotiṣa, that is the Yajurvedic calendar. But what is available in print right today is a combination of the two. That would be about 50 shlokas, 50 verses. It is only about how to find the tithi, where sun is located, in which nakṣatra. If you start from the winter solstice, which based on the nakṣatra that he gives, that is the śraviṣṭhā nakṣatra, which has been identified generally as Beta Delphini in the modern notation. This goes to about 1300 BC. Now, but between 2800 and 1300, what was the situation in the country? I said something about Darshapurna, and these all practical things developed. Yajnas were being done, rituals were being conducted. There are so many other satras, Gavamayana, and measurement of time. All that was happening. I'm sure that was happening. But is there something which is more comprehensive than Lagadha is the question? Because Lagadha doesn't say anything about planets. Lagadha doesn't say anything about eclipses, nothing about comets, nothing about even full moon. So where are we? If the Vedic period, they observed the sky with so much of care and concern, what happened in between? We have to question that.
Yes.
Yeah. And that, you want to ask something?
Yes, exactly. And so that is where we come to the Parashara Tantra. Is that?
Yeah, you're right. See, I will say, because you are talking about what I've been doing and I have
Yes.
done. So this is the Parashara Tantra. So last time I told you that I started with the earthquakes and the Kilari earthquake and so on and so forth. I will not go back into that. So when I searched the Varāhamihira's Bṛhatsaṃhitā, he quotes Parashara and Vṛddha-garga. So these were the two astronomers I was very much interested in, because both of them are more ancient, at least 1,000 years before Varāhamihira, from the data that is given. And hence, even the traditional Indologists agree that both Parashara and Vṛddha-garga are more ancient than Varāhamihira, who was in 5th and 6th century AD. So that means pre-Aryabhatan astronomy, if I have to get anything, it has to be only from Parashara and Vṛddha-garga. Now, Parashara actually has been quoted extensively, not by Varāhamihira, but by his commentator called Bhattotpala, who was a Kashmirian, who has written an excellent commentary on Bṛhatsaṃhitā. And there was another equally talented king who was originally from Karnataka, but who joined the Pala kings, and later on he became the Sena in the Mithila region. So he ruled over Mithila in the 10th to 12th century. That was Ballala Sena. So Ballala Sena was from Karnataka and he ruled the Mithila region. It's a variety of things because of the national integration that has happened in our country over thousands of years.
Right.
And he was equally talented. He wrote a book called Adbhuta Sagara.
Mm.
Adbhuta is only about special events in the sky, special events on the earth and in the atmosphere. Last time I told you there is a three-way categorization: Prithvi, Antariksham, and Dyauh.
Mm.
So that is earth, atmosphere, and sky. So these are the three regions, and in which anomalous events, whatever can happen, he has listed them. It is an encyclopedia actually. Unfortunately, not many people they don't know about it. It has been published in Varanasi in the beginning of the 20th century. And if you see that, he extensively quotes Parashara because Parashara wrote in prose. He did not write in verses. So, this is a key to understand older texts from later texts. The later texts are going to be mostly in versified form. Even the Siddhantic astronomers wrote in verse, whereas the pre-Siddhantic people, they wrote in prose, like the Vedic Brahmana Aranyaka text. That is how they wrote in prose. So Parashara's text was, I was interested in what he says about earthquakes. Then I found that he also has something to say about planets, eclipses, and comets. And the most important thing about Parashara was about comets, and he gives a list of 26 comets which visited, which were visible, so to say, by human beings. And please note, he gives the inter-arrival time of these comets. That means between two comets, how many years had elapsed. And if you add all of this elapsed years, it comes to about 1200 or 1300 years. I have published this in the Indian Journal of History of Science already.
Just a second,
And
Professor. So what you're saying is
yes,
they've recorded comets spanning 1,200 years, with
correct.
everything, each
Correct.
comet having 30-40 years gap, but and listing what, 26 comets did you say?
26 comets, the average will be around 85 to 86 years, or
86 years.
approximately 100 years, you can say,
Yes.
roughly of that. Some of them are very short period statements are also there. There are also comets, he says they come at 130 years. There are some which are at 125 years, like that. Now, this put me into a big question mark. If I can decide when Parashara lived, what is the origin of his school, I can add 1200 years, and obviously he would not have seen all of this. It is
Mm.
a long time record, maybe inherited, maybe oral, which could have come only through the Vedic tradition. Because in the third millennium BC, I already talked to
Mm.
you about all of those things. So there should be something there. So hence, I was very seriously looking into Parashara and about comets. Now, the date of Parashara, he gives a solar zodiac. The solar zodiac, as we know, is to decide the position of sun in the sky with reference to time on earth. Just to give an example, now we use 12 months.
Yeah.
Now, each month, if sun moves from one place to the another place, today we say he travels two and a quarter nakṣatra or one rashi. See, one rashi is actually a sign which says from the equinox it is done
So just
nowadays.
a second, Professor.
Yes,
Just for our viewers too. So when you say when the sun moves, it is early in the morning, before sunrise. What
correct,
constellation is seen at the point where the sunrise? So before it rises, you can see a major constellation, and every day it changes a little bit, and then over a period of a year, we cycle through the
correct,
27
correct.
constellations.
And that also goes through precision.
Yes.
See, the issue is again precision. I'm coming to that precision. That is the important thing. Now, in the Maitrani Aranyaka, the year started, that is the Varsha, started with the Varsha Rutu. We have to understand this. See, in India, even today, we call the year as Varsha. You see, which Varsha, particularly in Kannada, you say Yashne Varsha, like that. And that is connected with the Hindi Baris.
Mm.
Baris is also Varsha. And when with the rain season, the year started. That is why it was called Varsha. The year was called Varsha.
Yeah.
And that is in the Magha nakṣatra. when the Grishma Ritu ended and the Varsha Ritu started. That is how in the Maitrayani Aranyaka it is given. Now, there are only two ayanas there. He doesn't say anything about months, anything about seasons. They might have known, but it is not recorded. That's what I'm telling.
Yeah.
He says that the summer solstice started with the Magha nakṣatra up to winter solstice, which is half of śraviṣṭhā. Śraviṣṭhārdham. I have given also the statements and all, śraviṣṭhārdham, up to half. Now, how do I know the date of this? I have to decide which is Magha nakṣatra, which is śraviṣṭhā nakṣatra, translate them into modern notation of Leonis, or maybe Aquarius, or Beta Aquarii, or Beta Delphini, something like that, and precise it back. Because the summer solstice is going to be 90 degrees longitude. Winter solstice will be 270 degrees longitude for sun, because equinox is 0 degrees. So the movement of the equinoxes, or the precision of the equinox as it is called, is same as the precision of solstice nakṣatra also. That has to be done. And for that, I need an anchor point. This is a 0 point. Now in Parashara, he says his year started with the winter solstice with śraviṣṭhādi, with the first part of śraviṣṭhā. That is sectors. The nakshatras are visible stars, but these are sectors. śraviṣṭhādi, he says. Ardha, he says. Antya, he says. So these are the ending points. It is like the modern longitude. This is 0 degrees, beginning, end, half, that kind of thing. But they didn't have the angular measure. At least it is not there. But they had these kind of concepts. And the whole zodiac was divided into 27 equal parts. They were called the nakshatras. Within these sectors, there were stars, identifiable stars. So they were visible. You can make an arbitrary division. Why 27? You can make it into 100 divisions. But they had 27. That is again coming from the Vedic side. So in the 3rd millennium, 4th millennium, they were already observing. They had observed the bright stars, maybe with the moon, maybe sometimes with the sun and all that. That knowledge was formalized in the 2nd millennium BC. Now, Parashara gives some of this information. And it is a solar zodiac, is a seasonal solar zodiac. It was not Rashi. It was not month, but seasons. Because seasons are felt. So you have the rain, so it's the Varsha Ritu. It is hot, it is the Grishma Ritu. And also the light changes. That is the sunlight. The day is longer in summer, day is shorter in winter. These kinds of things are also there. And in the winter solstice, sun is extremely below the horizon to the south. I have sent last time also about those things. Whereas in the summer, sun is very high above in the northern side. These are all Vedic concepts. Because the name Uttara, the name Dakshina, they all come from the Vedic. Watch sun in the north, that means he does a pradakshina. That is why the word Dakshina has come to your right when you stand seeing east, the sun. All this information, so Parashara gives an Aditya-chara. That is when sun starts in the winter solstice, beginning of the śraviṣṭhā. Similarly, he gives the seasons. 4.5 nakshatras make a season. So he lists the boundary stars. That is, the season starts with the following nakshatra. That is how he gives the statements. śraviṣṭhādyāt paushnardantam charataha shishiraha. Paushnarda is going to be Revati half. So Shishira is from śraviṣṭhā Adi up to Revati middle. Similarly, Paushnarda, that is from that starting, Rohinyantam Vasantaha, he says. So up to the end of Rohini, it is going to be Vasanta Ritu kind of thing. It continues like that.
No, but this is a pretty complex and very, very good observation. So then,
Of course, a very good observation. So that is what you see. Once the solstice point they understood, that sun stands still in the north and in the south. When Dhruva was not there fixed, we have to understand this. Dhruva was always in the background. But Dhruva, unfortunately, was not fixed. So they had to devise a new way because any movement has to be with reference to a fixed origin. So he picked up the winter solstice because the winter solstice is sun is standstill, same as Lagadha. Lagadha also takes the same thing. But Parashara is more detailed because of the comets, as I told you. So if Parashara was 1300, let him say approximately, if I add 1200 years for the comets, maybe I go to 2500 or 2600 BC. And what happened at that time? It says the first comet was Samplaveshu. Samplava is floods.
Floods, yeah.
The first flood, during the first flood, a Ketu called Vasa Ketu appeared, he says. And 130 years after that, Asti Ketu came. So on it goes like the Chalaketu, there's a Shweta Ketu, and it caused a lot of destruction because earthquakes occurred and the Kurukshetra was destroyed. So many details are there available. And because of my interest in earthquakes, I had to see because many tectonic upheavals have happened because of asteroid impacts. Today, that is the prime question internationally, and NASA is working with bringing the samples of the asteroids and trying to see what was the initial formation of the universe itself. And these questions were there at that time also, but with whatever facility that was available, they did that much. So he has recorded all of that. Now, this 1300 BC is with the winter solstice. Now, if you see between 2800 BC and the 1400 BC or whatever, was there no fixed point for people? Maitrayani Aranika, why did it say it was Magha? Maghadyam, it says. It doesn't say śraviṣṭhā or Dadyam. It starts with Magha beginning point.
So winter solstice is Magha.
No, winter solstice is śraviṣṭhā.
Winter solstice is śraviṣṭhā.
Sun is which? That is for Lagadha also.
Yeah.
So that is how this Parashara business was there. But Parashara is being only quoted by later people, by, as I said, Utpala and Balalasena, about the astronomical things. See, Varāhamihira simply mentions his name here and there. He doesn't extensively quote him. And all that quotation comes from his commentator.
Okay.
And Varāhamihira doesn't say anything about the inter-arrival time of comets. He would have known it because he would have exposure to Parashara's book. Otherwise, he couldn't have quoted him like that. But he says comets are beyond mathematics. So he was unwilling to accept the inter-arrival time. That is fine. He's a rationalist. So he says, he doesn't say anything. He just leaves it like that. Whereas Balalasena gave all the details as it is quoted. That is what I have picked up. And in the book, I have compared between Balalasena and also Bhattotpala. Bhattotpala also quotes some differences, some identities, but both have the same author. In other words, Parashara's tradition is well known. It was living even up to the 12th century. Because Bhattotpala was in the 10th century. Balalasena was in the 12th, the 200 years difference. They knew Parashara. Now, a new person also comes into picture there. That is, Vṛddha-garga also is there. Now, Parashara, as I said, I could not get any manuscripts for him. See, when my book was released in Bangalore, in the Mythic Society, Professor Rodam Narasimha.
Yes.
Is an FRS.
Yeah,
correct. As an extraordinary person who has worked on also on history of science, was knowledgeable in Sanskrit, and an internationally well-known scientist. He came for the release of the book. And in the lecture, he said, now that he has published Parashara from quotations, you people have to go and search for the manuscripts of Parashara. Well, we did. We couldn't get anything. So far, I haven't got. But as a compensation, I got Vṛddha-garga manuscript. So that is the next part of the story, so to say. So Vṛddha-garga manuscripts, before the pandemic itself, I had started collecting his manuscripts.
But in Parashara Tantra, is there a reference to Agastya? Where does Agastya come?
Oh yeah, it's a very good question. Agastya is a, see, the older texts, as I said, the pre-Siddhantic texts, they start with questions. A large number of questions. Like in the Kenopanishad, there are questions: who, why, what, that kind of thing. The student asks Parashara, I see a bright light in the south. It is unlike the planets which rise in the east and set in the west. But it rises in the south, it also sets in south only. Sometimes seasonally I see it. Why seasonally? Because Shukra is not seen every day. Shukra, when Shukrasta happens, rises in the west. After some time, he is seen in the west. So he asked such a question: who is this? It's called Agastya. What is the story behind
So
it?
he's comparing Venus, Shukra, Venus with Agastya.
He is not exactly comparing Venus, but from the statements you can see, because the planets which are along the ecliptic, he says, Jyotish Chakram, he says, they are in the east and the west, whereas this is unlike either of them, unlike any of these.
Right.
That is what he says. And he says it rises and sets there itself. That is in the south, roughly in the south itself. Now, Parashara explains that. He gives this story, the Vedic story, that he went south, the Vindhya was rising, and he wanted Vindhya should not rise till he comes back and all that. And that is why he is kept in the south and all that. He tells this story first, but he also says, Agastya rises when sun is in the Hasta nakṣatra. Hastaste savitir yudeti. Rohini samste pravishati, he says. He says in every year, in the Hasta nakṣatra, that is modern day called Corvus constellation. So when sun is in the Corvus constellation, Agastya rises in the south, and he sets when sun is in the Rohini constellation. Rohini is going to be the Aldebaran, near Aldebaran. Now, this can be dated. Now, quite a bit of work has been done. There is one professor of astronomy in the University of Hyderabad called Iyengar. Now, Dr. Iyengar was an extraordinary person. He was a modern astronomer, and he was also a very good Sanskrit scholar. So he had studied many of these things. He worked on Mahabharata. He worked on some of these things. He wanted to see what is this Agastya business. But he did not know Parashara. But he knew about Agastya being there in all the Siddhantic astronomy books. So all the Siddhantic astronomy books devote one chapter to Agastya Chara. And Agastya is so important. Even today in India, Arghya has to be given to Agastya when Agastya rises, particularly in West Bengal, in Mithila region, in all those regions, it's a very important festival. Even in South, it is there in the temples mostly. Not so much people do that. But in the North, the kings had to do this. That is a very, very important ritual for them. It continues even today. In the Bhadrapada Masa, they do it, It is said like that. Well, anyway, that is another matter.
No, but
Now, this shows.
But this was visible from the Kurukshetra region, right? From the heart of the
Correct,
Punjab.
correct. And this can be dated. So, Iyengar did the dating because Agastya is a southern star, it's below the equator. So, it would be visible in the southern hemisphere is a different thing. It's a southern hemisphere star. Because of the rotation of the earth, the yearly rotation of the earth, some seasons it comes up to some particular latitude to be visible. Now, because Rigveda talks of Agastya, Vedic people knew about Agastya, and all our Puranas are full of Agastya.
Yes.
Ramayana, Mahabharata, wherever you go, Tamil Nadu. See, Agastya is the leading rishi for Tamil Nadu. He is the founder of Tamil language, as it is said, and also of the Vyakarna, Tamil Vyakarna. So there is so much story about Agastya. And Agastya is in the south, Saptarshis are in the north. The seven Saptarshis and Agastya together, they form the Gotra. These eight are the progenitors of all Hindus who believe in the Vedas. There can be nothing more stronger than this. Being from the north to south, combined. This is in the Vedic text, this Gotra. I am not telling that. Agastya Ashtama Agastyaha. So the eighth Rishi is the Agastya, forming the Gotra. Now, this would have been visible in the Kurukshetra region for the Vedic people already by about 4000 BC. They might not have understood everything about it, but Agastya rising they would have seen. That is a new light which is coming up in the south. And the importance of Agastya is, even today, it doesn't rise to very high altitudes.
Yes.
Day by day, it rises. And in the initial stages, that is in 4000 BC, when it started coming out, it would have risen for only 3 degrees, 4 degrees altitude, then set there itself. In other words, Agastya would have been a dwarf.
Right.
And Agastya iconography is a dwarfish iconography.
Yeah.
All over India, including Nepal, shown as a dwarf. You see the relationship of our culture to the skies, how the Vedic observation of the sky merged in the day-to-day life of not just Vedic Pandits, just of Brahmins. It went up to all the levels of the society,
Yes.
dispersed, kind of diffused into all sects of the society. And also, there is another point that Agastya even today is not visible beyond 38 degrees, say 38 degrees north or 40 degrees. Here in Hartford, I can't see Agastya. Maybe you may be able to see there, but I won't be able to see in this latitude. So to say that the Romaka Ganita is from Rome and things like that is not right, because in Rome you can't see Agastya even today.
Yes.
So these are some of the byproducts we get from studying pre-Siddhantic astronomy. Astronomy pre-Aryabhatan astronomy. So your question, I'm very happy about Agastya.
Wonderful.
So Parashara was the key person.
Right. So we have all the excerpts from the Parashara Tantra, and then later on we see the Vṛddha-garga text. Again, that's a layered text. You have old observations and then new observations there as well.
Yeah, you are right. You are right. So let me tell my story again. Once this Parashara Tantra book was completed, I was still looking for Vṛddha-garga. In fact, Vṛddha-garga quotations are also available. Like Parashara was quoted, Vṛddha-garga is also quoted. So I wrote a paper already combining these two. What we know about Vṛddha-garga and Parashara, even before I published my book and before I got the manuscripts, because we're based on quotations. And I made a conclusion also that we should look for the manuscripts. Now, the story becomes more interesting. People have been looking for manuscripts, like Pingree. Pingree is a well-known person, has his Census of Exact Sciences in Sanskrit. So he has collected a magnum opus. He has published a 4-volume book on the manuscripts in India, which are unpublished and some are published, kind of thing. So I went through that, and large number of Garga statements are there. He also knew about Parashara. Not that he did not know, but he simply says he did not say anything about Parashara Tantra because he has not come across that. He writes Parashara quotations, Adbhuta Sagara, this and he simply says Parashara is woman astrology. It doesn't have any astronomy, is what he said. But I found that it is not true. Parashara had some astronomy, and it's not totally portents and omens and things like that. Hence, I was a little bit skeptical about Pingree's catalogs and Pingree's work. Nevertheless, he has given something for us to refer.
Yes.
So I collected Garga's manuscripts. It's are available. Whatever it is, I would collect it, I said. And from before the pandemic started, got 1 or 2 manuscripts and studying them, reading the manuscripts. Very hard to read the manuscripts directly, but I went on reading them. And it's a huge collection, so to say, because the Gārgīya Jyotiṣa is one thing, Gārgya-samhita is different, Vṛddha-garga-samhita is different, Garga Kevali is different, Garga Prashna is different, Garga Manorama is all with Garga. There may be something like 100 such texts available. I collected 25 of them. I sampled. I mean, as a statistically, I said I will sample this from here and there because I can't pay even for all of that. But anyway, I had some projects which we purchased. Some we got just like that. And I got a manuscript called Garga-samhita even from Nepal because it was also called Vṛddha-garga-samhita. So you see that if we have to work on Indian manuscripts, we have to be very careful about the catalog names. It is not like the catalog names I see in my library,
Yeah.
where the author name is there, the number is there,
Yeah.
year is there, and all that. So manuscript libraries in India, very difficult.
Correct.
The name may be something, inside may be something else. 4 or 5 books may be combined and they would call it by the first name. Variety of problems are there. And you see that there are something like 5 million manuscripts are yet to be brought out.
In catalog properly, yeah.
Catalog is there. Some catalogs are there, but nobody knows what is inside. The name is there, where it is available. And even Parashara Tantra may be available somewhere. It may not be catalog because we have looked into only the catalogs and available things because we have to physically go to the library, see what is there and all that, Some are online. Now it is better. Day by day, situation is improving. That is right. But I am talking about what was the situation 25 years back when I started working on this. When I was still at the Indian Institute of Science, working on Parashara's manuscripts and Garga manuscripts to look for earthquakes. Now, let me cut this story short. Now, after the 25 manuscripts I collected, which incidentally I will be publishing one part of this manuscript called Mahasalilam. The Central Sanskrit University has agreed to publish. It has been edited using 11 manuscripts of Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa, what I call. See, the Garga-samhita, Gārgīya-samhita, Gārgya-samhita, they are later things which have come from the students or the family members of Garga. So who was Garga? Don't ask me.
Yeah, they belong to the Garga Gotra, but it could be anybody later.
It can be even students. See, Gārgīya means even a student of Garga is called Gārgīya, as per Panini. The apatyas are also Gārgīya. That means children also Gārgīya. That will not go into those details. And these are all touted as astrology books, actually. If you see today, they will say Garga Jyotiṣa, Garga Manorama. That is an astrology book. Garga Prashna, that is from Kerala or somewhere it has been published, and it is an astrology book. That is how it is there. But Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa, I was very skeptical. It cannot be that. So I went through all of that. Now, I've been working on this for the last nearly 10 years on the Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa. Of the 25 manuscripts, 11 manuscripts are astronomical. And also, they belong to a period before Aryabhata because they don't have Rashi. Or if Rashi is there in one shloka or somewhere, it is an interpolation. That means nowhere else you find it. It will just, somebody might have, when these manuscripts are copied and copied and copied every 200 years, somebody might have thought his own Rashi somewhere he has to introduce or whatever might happen. He might have Rashi, he would have written somewhere in the corner or somewhere for his reading. Now, when we collect 11 manuscripts, they are from different regions. Kashmir, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Varanasi kind of thing, Mysore. So it has been copied in regions differently also. Even the scripts may be very peculiar. But these manuscripts, as it is available to us today, the paper cannot be older than 500 years. Paper or the medium cannot be older than 500 years because they would have lost by that time.
Yes. Yeah.
So what is lost, we don't know. Let us not worry about it. What is there is what we are studying. So if I go through this, initially we thought that I would serially try to publish the manuscript. Just see reading and publishing. But I could not understand some of the initial part itself. See, the Vṛddha-garga manuscript is so good. He gives a content also. So the contents, what are there in this
Yeah.
Vṛddha-garga tradition gives the contents. So that in the manuscript, if something else is there, somebody else has had it. It was not due to the original person. Or there is a difference. I have to be very careful.
Yes.
I can give both, but I have to be very careful. A simple thing I will tell you. In the Nepal manuscript, the Vṛddha-garga-samhita is a Vastu Vidya. It has nothing to do with astronomy. It tells how to find the east direction. That is there. To that extent, it is astronomy. That's all. There is nothing else. It is totally Vastu Vidya. Vastu Vidya, which belongs to 400 BC in the Magadha region and all that. Of that is the Nepal manuscript. Now, this Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa, which is available in mainland India, it also has a Vastu Vidya chapter, 6 chapters. It has nothing to do with the Nepal text. The shlokas are different, the text is different, the intentions are also different. The methods of construction are also, of course, wood timber is common.
Right.
Whereas timber was used in the Nepal region, it knows only timber. It doesn't say anything about stone. Whereas this mainland text talks about stone, knows about definitely timber, but it talks about loha also. Some metal also it talks about. So you can see the difference. But it's a cultural thing which is there and is spread all over. Well, anyway, that is another interest in Vastu Vidya in architecture, because that is also an equally important thing. We'll not go into that. So coming back to this Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa, when myself with Sudarshan, whom you know very well, we started publishing the initial chapters. There are so many technical terms which you could not understand. So we went on reading the manuscript. I came to a prose part called the Mahasalilam, which is the 24th section. 24th section is not the 24th chapter, because each section has 4 chapters, 5 chapters, 6 chapters. The total text is about 125 chapters,
So when you
about
say
6,000 shlokas.
Okay. Oh, that's huge, large text. 6,000
It is a large text. It is it is about 1/4 of Ramayana.
Exactly. So
It is of such large text. But quite a bit is layered and interpolated, because in different periods, people have added. That is the interesting thing. Now, this was not known to me. So when I went through this, I mean, as a research worker, I would be very happy if I find something new which is not known. Now, in the Aditya chapter, he gives the same solar zodiac as Parashara. That was a revelation for me. Parashara gave his zodiac in prose, whereas in the Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa manuscript, I don't know who is the author, so one of the Garga 1, Garga 2, Garga 3, Garga 4, whoever he may be, he also gives the same. And he quotes actually what Lagadha has written. Lagadha would have quoted from Garga. He would have known that shloka. Soma Vasavayo Saha, he says, the beginning, how it happens, the Samvatsaradi. Same thing is. So the interesting thing with Vṛddhagārgīya Jyotiṣa is, he gives the nakṣatra composition. How many stars are there in each nakṣatra? And he gives also the names of these nakṣatras very clearly, so that we can build up a catalog of the nakṣatras which in the 2nd millennium BC, these people would have seen to come to an understanding on what may be the seasonal boundaries. Now, this work, because the nakṣatra sectors have to have the stars, and the Vedas give the names of the stars. That Kritika has 6 stars, then Jyeshta has 3 stars, śraviṣṭhā has 4 stars, kind of thing. So the total number of stars is not 27. Nakshatras are 27. Many people mistake this. Total number of stars is 86. Shadashiti, that is the 86 stars. Now, how do I come to a conclusion when these things were there? Because there are so many stars now. See, in the Lagadha's case, there is only 1 star. So people, right or wrong, did something. Now, in the Parashara's case, he doesn't say anything. He gives only the bright stars which was there. So I could get an upper bound and a lower bound. In Vṛddha-garga, he gives more detail. So what we did a minimum error analysis. A minimum error analysis is going to be, you start from 3000 BC find out the error in the solar zodiac and the nakshatras where it is a minimum. It attains a minimum around 1300 BC. Then again, it keeps on increasing. In
Right.
other words, the names of the stars and the name of the sectors have to match.
Yes.
Otherwise, you have no way of doing things. If we say Kritika sector, the Kritika nakshatra, visible Kritika nakshatra should be in the Kritika sector.
Right.
This is what is missing later on in the Jyotiṣa, that is in the Palad Jyotiṣa and astrology, today's astrology. But our ancients were very careful on this. And the same text has one more chapter, there's the 59th section towards the end, which gives called a Rutu Swabhava, which has 6 seasons, but it gives the monthly stars that sun moves through a particular star.
So just to step back, so this we can see now the change. So what was a seasonal approach by just looking at the larger seasons, right, where the beginning of the sun and the ending of the sun. Now there is more detail with the
More
with
detail.
specific stars
Correct.
being.
Correct. You're right. And that is why the development of astronomy, the schools of Parashara and Vṛddha-garga, if I had to put, Parashara was first,
Yes.
essentially observation. To combine with planets, it will take more time. Parashara gives the period of Venus, gives the period of Jupiter, gives the period for Saturn, gives the period for Mercury, but not for Angaraka. That is not for Mars. Whereas Vṛddha-garga gives something for Mars also. That is this text which I have collected has an Angaraka Chara chapter where the sidereal period, the number is approximate, but anyway, the sidereal period is given. What we call a pseudo sidereal period nowadays, because sidereal period cannot be observed. You know the synodic period, and you make an argument with which you come to you will say 1 over alpha minus 1 over beta equal to 1 over s, and then find out the sidereal period like that. Because the modern definition of sidereal period is somewhat different. Whereas these people come to the same star, start with a star, comes to the same star.
Exactly.
Now for Angaraka, Parashara knew the retrograde motion. That is Vakragati he knew. He gives the Vakragati that Angaraka can have in a Vakragati and gives the names of the Vakra also. This is another very interesting thing in Indian astrology.
So just to inform viewers, sir. So what happens is when the stars or the planets are moving in the sky, you see them go forward every day, and then sometimes you see it in the opposite direction, and then it again next day when you see it, it moves forward. So that is the retrograde motion. Yeah. So all these observations were being kept track.
Right.
Yeah.
There is something more there in the observation. That's what I wanted to say. That has something to do with the language and the naming. So the language and naming, and these are technical words. And how did they select? How did they do that? See, for example, Kritika means cutter. It is something which cuts like a knife. And if you see the constellation Kritika, we have given all of that, the figures also. It looks like that, a constellation. Now, these are not the Rashis. These were the 27 nakshatras. And if you say Magha has 6 stars. It looks like it is called a Koshtagara. Koshtagara means a boundary wall or a house or a room. It looks like that if you can join those 6 stars. So the names themselves tell you how to identify. Not all, but many of them. I've discussed that in the book. I will not go into the details of that. Because for Mahasalilam and the Vedanga astronomy, this is all important. Because what is Vedanga? It has to explain the Vedas. Now, both Parashara and Vṛddha-garga explain the Vedas. The comets, the nakshatras, the Agastya, all of that are explained. But Vṛddha-garga gives more details also. Like in the Darshapurnamasa Vedi, the central Vedi is because of the moon's orbit. Moon's orbit, how would they know? They have to see the sky and see moon is going like this, and this is the shape.
Yeah.
Parashara does the same thing for Angaraka. He says it is like a Nistrimsha Mushala or Vyala. Vyala is like a snake which goes forward, comes, and then goes. Nistrimsha Mushala is not that. It's like a knot. It is Angaraka, if you see even today, sometimes it can have a knotted kind of thing. Comes back, loops on itself, crosses the
Yes.
older path and goes onto the other side. If you see the Nasat, I have put up the figures in my book also. So he calls it the Nistrimsha Mushala. It is like knife going down like this, which is held in hand. It is like this. Whatever analogy they had in their mind, they have given that. Now, this Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa, as I said, the 59th section, the Ritusvabhava, belongs to 500 BC. Already he gives the month's name, the solar month. It is the Sauramana. It is not just the season. Whereas Parashara doesn't talk so much about them. They might have known the months because the Purnima occurs somewhere, so that might have been the month. But that was not in vogue so much. It was the season which was in vogue. Now, Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa, if you see, the 24th section was the most interesting thing. Because unless that was understood, the technical words, we could not understand the other chapters. And that is Mahasalil. That Mahasalilam belongs to around 1600 BC. And it starts the year with the Magha nakṣatra and the summer solstice. It clearly says the ayana is there. Ayana is the lateral movement.
Yes.
Not just for sun, but for moon also. Magha sauryanam saumyanam ayana nakṣatranam adihi. Sauryana means this, Saumyana means this lunar. For the ayanas, Magha nakṣatra is the adi. From that nakṣatra, you have to count. What
So,
were they will count?
for the most part, the moon follows the sun, right? Because they're in the same plane, but there may be a slight change, about 4 or 5 degrees, with the moon.
No, what is ayana? We have to see.
Yeah.
See, ayana is not just the lateral movement. In those days, ayana would have been, there are 2 ayanas. Extreme point to extreme point,
yes,
is called an ayana. So in a year, there are 2 ayanas. One is north to south. Second is south to north. Saumyanam ayana means even moon has north to south and south to north.
Yes.
And Mahasalila gives for 10 solar ayanas, there are 134 lunar ayanas. That means 10 solar ayana means 5 years. 134 lunar ayana means 67 sidereal cycles. So the sidereal cycle of the moon was established, at least available in writing for us, in around 1600 BC. This was 300 years before Lagadha. Lagadha also gives 5 years. There's 62 synodic months also he gives. Now, Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa also knows the synodic period, but not the Mahasalila. Mahasalila knows the Purnima and all of that. It recognizes Darsha Purnamasa should be done.
Yes.
And he gives the Vedic quotations and all that. It calls Paurnamasi as Purna Tithi. So the word Tithi is used there. Purna Tithi. Paurnamasi Bhavati, it says. So that Tithi is something like the end. It is like a book end. You start from somewhere, you come to the same end. It is like, I would say in English, you would say 10th, 12th, maybe person, or maybe the row, 10th row. The TH is there.
Yeah.
It is called the Tituk Pratyaya in Sanskrit. The Tituk Pratyaya gives rise to the word Titha and Tithi. Of course, in Pullinga, Strilinga, variations are there. And Mahabharata also uses the word Titha. Today, we think Tithi is only in a particular sense we take it.
Yes.
No, that is a lunar thing is what we take it.
Yeah.
But in the older time, the word Tithi was used for Purnima as an instantaneous time. Even Mahabhashya gives this. The Kala, when moon is full, is called Purna Tithi. So Paurnima is, as a day you take it, it is for 30 muhurtas or 24 hours. It is not like that. It is an instantaneous thing. Now, you just think about it. Paurnima, he says in their own language, the moon's face becomes full, and that is Purnima Tithi, Purna Tithi, that instant. And then he says, the cycle begins. Again, it goes through then Amavasya. There is another word, Sanaya. That Sanaya has taken me so much effort to find out what is this Sanaya. Because it comes in the Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa, in the Angasamuddesha, in the content chapter itself. That has been wrongly interpreted, wrongly written, wrongly published, and so many things have happened. And Sanaya, if you see the dictionary, it only says it is a havis, which should be given on Amavasya day, which is
just an offering to be given.
Yeah, it is an offering of mix of dadi and kshira. That is milk and curds has to be given. But Mahasalya clearly says Amavasya is taken, then Sanaya comes, and after that Darsha comes. That is, Sanaya is continuously taking Amavasya towards Darsha. Darsha is the scene.
Yes.
Darsha is to see, that is the new moon. What in English also called new moon, it is Darsha. But the Sanaya is the reciprocal of Purnatiti. That is the instant in which the conjunction has taken place. The two are together. So it is a continuous movement. They knew that. You see, in the last lecture also, I told you about Indra drinking 30 lakes of things.
Yes.
So it is a continuous time. So here also they knew that as the Sanaya is used in that sense. Sanaya Havi is also given, he knows that, he says that Prajapati gave the 17th thing as the Sanaya Havis, and that is how it happens. That is from the Vedic inheritance, that is done. But it is Sanaya word is used. That is the conjunction. So these are the things which become important.
This is in the Mahasalilam.
Mahasalila, which is in prose,
correct,
which reads something like Brahmana text. See, we invited a group of Vedic people, Vedic practitioners in Bangalore last December to have a 2-day seminar where people from Nepal had also come, 2 people from Varanasi had come, and also others had come, and Bisht, or archaeologist, you know him, who excavated. But invited quite a few people because we wanted to know what was the pre-BCE thing as what we are climbing. Does it gel with people? What do they feel? And they said this reads like a Brahmana text. Many of them did not know English. They knew only Sanskrit, corresponded with them. And well, anyway, there is another matter. This is not known. This text is not known. It has been lying idle. Added to this, our Pingree and company had to go back. I'm sorry, I have nothing against them. I have benefited by Pingree, definitely. Yeah. He has given a list of chapters in the what he calls the Gārgīya Jyotiṣa. He doesn't want to call it Vṛddha. He gives Gārgīya Jyotiṣa. And in that he says Salila is there. The name is there because it is in the content. So in the text it was there, Salilam, Pater. So Salilam, he says rainfall. And the same thing has been picked up by a few other people who are recently published on Gārgīya Jyotiṣa. They don't want to call it Vṛddha-garga. They want to call it only Gārgya. That's okay. That's a different matter. And Pingree also said this text has nothing to do with the Vedanga Jyotiṣa. Or the Vedanga Jyotiṣa of Lagadha. For the Yajusha Jyotiṣa, there is a commentary. See how the Sanskrit intellectual tradition gets mixed up, and unless we unknot them,
correct,
and then understand it properly, we don't get anything. Superficially, you see, you get only a superficial result. In the Yajusha Jyotiṣa, Somākara Bhashya has been published, has been printed by Sudhākara Dvivedi. Of course, some of the readings are wrong. I have marked it in my book also what was wrong. That is a different matter. And he quotes Garga, which statement is exactly there in the Mahasalilam of the what I am now publishing. I don't know how Pingree would say that this is not found anywhere. This Vedanga Jyotiṣa cannot be considered as, belonging to the Garga thing, kind of thing. Now, these are the new issues which come up, and we have to sort it out, and hence to give a continuity to my previous, see, the Gārgīya text, the Vṛddha-gargīya Jyotiṣa text, which you have collected, the 11 manuscripts contain this Mahasalilam. And this 24th section is actual Vedanga Jyotiṣa. That means it explains the Vedas. See, the Mahasalilam is the 24th section, contains 2 chapters, totally in prose, a Vedic prose, pre-Paninian prose. Uses the word kurvati, not karoti, kind of thing. So such kind of usages are there. And this, as I said, we had a 2-day meeting with the Vedic Pandits and the Shrautis who practice the Shrauta to discuss about the Darshapurnamasa and also about the Vedanga Jyotiṣa of Mahasalila, not the Lagadha. Lagadha in comparison is trivial. There are 3 numbers. Based on those 3 constants, you can construct. Anybody can construct the kind of thing. He gives the algorithms. That is the important thing with Lagadha. Whereas Parashara and Vṛddha-garga, they were observers. They talked about planets, eclipses, occultation of stars. Parashara gives occultation of stars. And also something which could be the introduction to astrology, the Vedic astrology. That is also there, both in Parashara and also in Vṛddha-garga. So, as I showed you, the Parashara Tantra and Vṛddha-garga Adityachara belonged to 1300 BC. So, in around 1300 BC, there were 3 people, you can say. Parashara first, next Garga, next Lagadha. But where did they get these things? 1000 years before? Question is, I know that Maitrayani Aranyaka starts its summer solstice with Magha, not with Dhanishta or śraviṣṭhā. So what happened in between was the question. Mahasalila fills up this. This Mahasalila is also available in the same manuscript collection, which I collected from our library. Whether it was by Garga or whether it has been attributed to Garga, I don't know. It starts, says, Vishwamitra asked Vṛddha-garga the following questions. There are 100 questions. First Adhyaya is 100 questions. He asks about how this whole universe started, what are these planets, what is the distance from sun to earth, what is the distance from sun to the other planets, questions like that. And what are these comets, how did they happen? And he talks about how did the rivers come up, how did the mountains come up. These are the kinds of questions which are there. And what is Ritu? What is Parva? What are nakshatras? I mean, as a teacher, I always encourage my students to ask questions. If in my class in the IASC, if they did not ask a question, I'd say, you people are not good. You have to ask questions. You should not take a teacher for granted, not just nod their head and go away. That is not the right thing. 100 questions. And the answers are equally interesting in Mahasalila. That was the zeal why, after the Parashara Tantra, when I started the Vṛddha-garga, I would pause the initial chapters, but then come to Mahasalilam first and finish Mahasalilam. It is not a very detailed book in the sense it has only about equivalent of 300 shlokas, about 300, 400 verses, not longer than that, even though it is in prose, approximately, I'm telling. But the content is enormous. And it says these stars became nakṣatra. It explains the legend of Rohini and Soma. Now, in the Puranas, it is called the legend of Rohini and Chandra. And Chandra becomes Raja Yakshma, that is becoming, he decreases in the dark fortnight, is what is said, the Krishna Paksha. But why in the Krishna Paksha, Shukla Paksha, he increases? Vedic thing is quite clear. The Krishna Paksha, he decreases. Shukla Paksha, Soma comes in. Somapana happens only in the Krishna Paksha for the deities. So the Vedic legend is not as in the Puranic. It says Prajapati stayed only with Rohini. That is why the other 27 or 28, they got angry, went to the Prajapati and asked. So Prajapati called Soma, and the answer is given by Chandra. And Chandra says, I move with all of your daughters. I treat all of them equally. That is not clear. Na aticharami. I move in all of them like that. Dharmam chara, he says. So that is what I am doing. But Prajapati says, no, I will curse you with Raja Yakshma. But what is Raja Yakshma? Raja Yakshma is a havis to prevent that given in the Darshapurnamasa Yaga and the Amavasya day. That is what it is there in the Vedas. That is the 17th Ahuti. And Soma understands, he clearly says, Rikshani nakshatram bhavati. Prajapati, what he had in his manas, Soma understood, or Chandra understood. That means the single Rohini becomes a nakshatra. Because in the Veda, Rohini is in Ekavachana. Whereas later on, Rohini has 5 stars. So Rohini was very important during the Dhruva period. When Dhruva was fixed, Rohini was the star in the Vasanta Ritu. So the year was perhaps taken up because Samvatsara Prajapatihi. Samvatsara itself is Prajapati as per the Vedas. And that was with the, I given the quotations and all that. In the Kataka Yajurveda it comes. And the Prajapati Rupa is when Rohini rises in this Vasanta Ritu. That is the mantra which is there. And that had changed due to precision. And hence the Rohini, the single star, which was in Ekvachana, had to become multiple stars with 5 stars. Now, Atharva Veda Parishishta, which is a companion of Atharva Veda, the number of stars for Rohini is only 1, whereas the number of stars for Kritika is 6. Whereas in all other texts, the number of stars for Rohini is 5. Even in the Buddhist Shardula Karanavadana and also in the Jaina Surya Pragnapti, Surya Chandra Prajna, they also give multiple stars. So the number of stars as per Parashara and Vṛddha-garga are going to be totally 86. So the Soma understanding that Rikshani nakshatram bhavati, nakshat is ekvachana, nakshatram bhavati. So it becomes only 1. Multiple stars become a single nakshatra. And there are 27 and they move equally in all of them. That is the understanding. That is an astronomical statement.
Absolutely. There's so much information here. So stepping back again, let's see if we can recap a little bit. So what you have said is, look, we have the Vedic time period. And then, of course, we come to, that is up to the Upanishad time. Then, so the observations of one kind. Then we see the Mahasalilam observations, which kind of fall later. And then afterwards, we see the Vṛddha-garga, Parashara and Vṛddha-garga. Is that a correct way of thinking?
Yeah, could be. Yeah. This word Vṛddha-garga has to be with strokes and dash and 1, 2 kind of thing. So we don't know exactly. Even Parashara may be multiple. That's also possible because they are Gotra names. You can't say exactly who was that. But the development of the subject has been like that. That is true.
So that fills the huge gap before the Siddhantic astronomy.
Correct.
So contrary to general, should we say, the thought that we now have a clean flow of accretive information, knowledge being increased from the Vedic period on to the Siddhantic period of Varāhamihira and...
Yeah, up to that. In other words, the Siddhantic people had something already. Whether they used it or not is a different matter. And that is also in the Puranas. The important thing is Puranas. In fact, that also in the Mahasalilam it comes, because how do we fix up the date of Maghadhyam or śraviṣṭhā, which nakṣatra is that? This has been the major question for the historians and Indologists. Because in Magha there are 6 stars. So if you take the precision to move, for sun to move that, it may take 900 years or 1000 years. So why do you say it is a second millennium BC? It may be 500 BC.
Correct.
This has been the argument which has been put up. And that can be sorted only by looking in the Brahmanda Purana. Brahmanda Purana gives the equinoxes, what we call today equinox.
Sure.
The equinox full moon position it gives. So the full moon position in the equinox, that means, full moon can occur any month at any time. Yes. But the equinox, if it occurs, it gives some message, because exactly on the opposite side, sun will be there if it is a full moon.
Yes.
So I know the longitude of the sun, and I can apply my precision principle with reference to the full moon and come to a conclusion. And fortunately, that is available, and that can be shown that the Brahmanda Purana, those shlokas, those 4 verses, they belong to the Maghadi period. That is same as the Maitrani Aranyaka when the summer solstice was in Magha beginning. Same as in Mahasalila when Magha and moon, they were measured. The Ayana was from the Magha nakṣatra. Same thing also in the Brahmanda Purana. This we have published. But that is actually a computer simulation work because we located for 2000 years, like we did in the other case also. Find the minimum error position. Here also we have followed the same thing. Because Magha will have 6 stars, that is 1000-year variation comes. We have Kritika and Vishaka, they are almost close, single stars. Vishaka has only 2. They are binaries, they are together. Whether you take Libra 1 or Libra 2, you get the same answer. In Kritika also, whether you take Tauri or something else, you get the same answer. It won't change much. And they're subjected to precision, which should also intersect the statements which are given in Mahasalilam and also in the Maitraniya Upanishad, Maitraniya Aranyaka. That intersection gives 2 answers. The lower bound is 1800 BC. The upper bound is 1600 BC. So in these 200 years, or about 300 years, this condition was possible for all the 3 texts put together.
Amazing. Okay.
So it's not a single year I can get, but it is a era I get. That is the Maghadi era. So Mahasalilam, as I said, also knows the Ayana of moon. Ayana of moon is the key for observational astronomy. This is not just the Ayana of sun, which has come from the Vedic period. It is moon Ayana. And all this explains the Vedas. Mahasalila says there are 108 grahas. Vedoktam Ashtottara-shatam Sankhyaayate. Ashtottara-shata, he clearly gives Ekottara-shatam Ketavaha. There are 101 comets. Pancha-tara-grahani. 5 Pancha-tara-graha. The Pancha-tara-graha is used even in Siddhāntic astronomy for planets. And sun and moon, they make totally 108.
Oh, amazing. So that is the number. That is why we have this Ashtottara-shatam.
Right. I should share some more information if there is time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. As I said, the Mahasalilam is getting published by the Central Sanskrit University. So the text is in Sanskrit, but my introduction, explanation, translation, they are mostly in English, even though Sanskrit quotations and those things are all given. It contains 2 chapters of introduction. The first chapter is about manuscript collection, what I told you. What is there in the first chapter, second chapter, and why this is important. How do we fix up the dates? Because this collection of books, imagine there is a big book.
Yes.
It has what we call the footprints on the sands of time.
Correct.
There is one in 1300 BC. There is one in 500 BC. So whatever Mahasalila, whether I fix up the date or not, initially I did not know about the date, how to do that, should be older than. So this, I had to do that. So that Mahasalim can be shown to be older because the language is older. Later on, I came across this Brahmanda Purana can be combined with this. That is how we did that Maghadi thing. Now the book, apart from the 2 chapters of introduction, one is on the manuscript, the second is on why it is Vedanga, where all it explains the Vedas, where something in the Veda is not understood, like Sannaya, Purna Tithi. Now there is so much of controversy about the word Tithi. And if you see Nagabaur's History of Ancient Astronomy, he says about tablets, they cannot be understood without the concept of Tithi. But he doesn't say that it could have come from India. It is a Sanskrit word. Now, Pingri, he totally ignores. And he coins a new word. The plural of Tithi should be called Tithes. Tithes.
Yes. Indo-European or instead of the...
No, whatever it is. And that is all very wrong.
Yes.
Because the word Purna Tithi is coined for the first time as an instantaneous thing. Later astrologers and astronomers have used the same word, like it happens today also we do such things. But in the ancient text, there is nothing like a Prathama Tithi, Dvitiya Tithi, Tritiya Tithi. It is Pratipat is the first day.
Yes.
And then the Dvitiya, Tritiya, you don't attach anything with that. And that goes to the Vedic usage. That will take too much time because I can't cover it now, because it goes to the Taittiriya Brahmana. How did they do that? The months, how did they handle? Because they knew that the synodic period was less than 30, more than 29.
Yes.
That is, Purnima to Purnima is neither 29 nor 30. So through a legend they established there has to be 59 Karanas. A Karana is going to be day and night. It is not half of Tithi. Today it is half of Tithi. In the older time, it was not like that. Garga gives all of that in this text. He discusses that. And he takes concepts from the phases of the moon. The phases of the moon, he says in this book, 5 kalas are drunk on the Panchamishu Upashpiyante. Dashamishu, remaining 5 kalas are Upapiyante. Panchadashishu, the remaining 5 colors are taken. So he gives a non-linear variation. I have given the graph and showed all of that.
So I mean, let's step. What you are saying is the moon, as it darkens, right? It does not happen in the same pace, but there's a difference. So that is what is being referred to here.
Correct. Initially, there is a 5-day thing, they say, and then the remaining 5 days, then the remaining 5 days. The thing is this, initially, if you wanted to call them tithis, they knew the moonrise they would be observing. I don't know by what name they called them. There would have been only 5 tithis. Varāhamihira in his Tithi Karma Guna gives Nanda, Bhadras, Ananda. There are only 5 tithis as per the ancients, and it recycles in the Paksha he gives it. Even though by the 5th century AD, this concept of Tithi had become so much of a problematic issue. And to find out the distance between sun and moon as 12 degrees, because they had already come to trigonometric things. Here, it was the transition period, observation, getting into geometry, getting in the Shulba Sutras to the right angle triangle and its properties and measure and putting circles and all that. So it is a transition. So trigonometric concepts would have evolved during that period. Between 800 BC to 100 BC or somewhere in that period. Could be. For that, we have to do more work and find out.
Amazing.
Now, coming back to Mahasalilam is the key for this, because it said the sidereal period is 67. They were interested in the position of moon within nakṣatra. Why? The Purna Tithi was there. They were doing the Darsha Purnamasa. That is, you observe directly.
Yes.
Darsha is seen. You do on that day. Amavasya, you do this. That's all over. You needed more intelligence to observe the ayana of moon.
Yeah.
And that was done for astrology, because the Soma became moon actually.
Yes.
Soma is not equivalent to moon.
And then also associated with the mind.
That is in the Upanishads, not here. Are there only 3 meanings? There can be more. Soma is the primal time. That comes out in this text, in the Mahasalanam text. That comes out because of astrology, what we call astrology today. That is the Muhurta. See, the Vedic astrology was anomaly, portents, finding out portents, anomalies, and then forecasting based on the anomalies. Whether there will be more rainfall, whether there will be destruction, what will happen to a person, kind of thing. Observing the stars.
So can we say, in a sense, so it was more of a meteorological thinking rather than looking at an individual person's future. Is that a reasonable way to think?
No, in the Mahasalam, the meteorological thinking is there, which has come from the Vedic texts.
Yes.
And that meteorology is not just what you call the atmospheric phenomenon. They are interested in the sky phenomenon, the celestial phenomenon. So it is the celestial study, if you can call it. That is what they call it, Daivatyam. Meteorological is going to be rainfall and all of these things. That they knew, that is Antariksha. So Antariksham anomaly is there, no doubt on that. But this is more serious than that.
I understand. Okay, got it.
And in that he says, in Kritika nakṣatra, when moon is with the Kritika nakṣatra, you can do all things connected with Agni, with fire. That means you can do a homa, You can do some vessels making. You can do smithy work if you want. You can also eat something which is very fiery, things like that.
Hot food.
All those things which are combined can be done. And Kanyopanayanam Kuryat. For Kanyas, for women, Upanayana can be done on Kritika Nakshatra, is what he said. Why? Because Prajapati, that is Soma, combined with Kritikas as fire in the most ancient time.
That is it. That is very interesting information.
That is Agni. And Mahasalila says Soma is always masculine, whereas nakshatras are all feminine. And he gives an example. In practice, Pushya is used in Pullinga, Pushyaha, but in effect, Pushya is also Stri only. And the combination of these, Agni Shoma, the whole universe is Agni Shomatmakam. It's a combination of Agni and Soma. And all these are various formations of that. You recollect your Sankhya, Prakriti Purusha.
Purusha Prakriti, yeah.
It is same as this. It's the plus and minus principle.
Yes.
And he says that when the two combine, when for common people, what corresponding karma should be done? Because all activities of the Prajapati,
yes,
the initial thing, happened simply because these two combined, Agni and Soma combined. Not that moon and nakshatra combined during creation. No. The creation is very clearly said. It is Andantamaha. It's the dark matter which was there. Salilam. In that Salila, there is a sudden explosion like an egg. And that egg split into two. The top part became the vault, Dyauh.
Yeah.
The bottom part was like a shell or whatever you may call it. It expanded. That is the Prithvi, Prithanat Prithvi. Because it widened, it became Prithvi. In between, what you see, Antaram Ikshate, whatever you see in between, is Antariksha. And all creations will die also in the Antariksha. Kriyate. It also dies in the Antariksha. That is the first statement of Vṛddha-garga for creation. Then he comes to the other things, which is like Rigveda 10.72.
Is that the creation?
Yeah, it is no, that is the other one. That is the Nasadiya,
Nasadiya.
Gurantamaha. It is not the Purusha Sukta. You have to be careful. Purusha Sukta creations a little bit is given in Mahasalila, but it has a different kind of lineage. Maybe in those days, they thought differently. There are different schools thinking differently.
Yes.
Like today, we argue and say, no, it cannot be like that. There also there might have been. And one tradition has come to us. What are the others? We don't know. And he also talks of comets, as I said, and it is the Meru-centric astronomy. And there, Dhruva is. He says, Dhruva was already established before by Prajapati at the tip of Meru, above all other Dvipas. And all these go round. Sun and moon also goes round Meru. And when sun goes behind Meru, there is going to be Ratri. Nashtarka Ratri, that is the definition is given. And he clearly says there are 4 divisions for the earth. Morning, midnight, evening, morning, mid-morning, then evening and midnight. So the whole of Prithvi is divided into 4 parts, quadrants, 4 quadrants. So wherever sun rises, that is the east for that Dvipa. Wherever sun sets, that is the east, west for that Dvipa. But when sun is rising for the Pragjyotisha Dvipa.
Makes sense. Okay. So now we are the
And it will be, yes,
and that's why
it will be noon in the Jambu Dvipa. And it is going to be evening in the Ketumala Dvipa. And it is night in the Uttarakuru. This is the same concept which has been taken into the Goladhyaya and into the cosmology in the Siddhantic astronomy also.
So we can really see this progression of knowledge.
Exactly.
It is very keen observation, jotting them down, coming up with the ideas of what it is.
It is correct. It is the history of ideas.
Yes.
That is more important. And then, as it happens in science, you check the hypothesis, it doesn't work, you change it.
Changes.
Now the Purana has given 7 dvipas. So new things have come up.
Yes.
And he also says why there is going to be summer, the days are longer in near summer, in summer, where days are shorter. He says the sun is very near the Meru, very near Prithvi, so it has to be, it is going to be more hot. Some reasons are given like that.
Yes.
This has been developed in the Puranas. The Puranic astronomy has not been studied clearly. And what is the connection between all this has not been studied.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to Mahasalilam. Apart from my work, there are 2 excellent forewords. One is in Sanskrit. That is by Professor V.N. Pandurangi, who is the head of the Dean of the Vedanta Studies,
Karnataka Sanskrit University.
Karnataka. And he has written a Vyakhyana also for Rigveda. He's writing a Vyakhyana for. He's a Vedic scholar also. I don't know whether you know him personally or not.
I know Professor One.
Extraordinary person.
Indeed.
So
yes.
I have discussed these things with him. How this should be interpreted, what is the interpretation. We have discussed with him so much. And he has read through all of this. And he clearly says many of the things, like Sanaya. He says the Mimamsakas take it only as Arthavada.
Yes.
So Arthavada should not be taken seriously, is their view. It's a Vidhi Nisheda. They go along a different line. And he also says the Vedantins, they do something else, go into other issues. Whereas the Arthavada has been ignored as meaningless. And many of the Westerners, they are making their own writings on these things. And he clearly calls for a new way of looking at the Vedic things.
Yeah.
Because this Mahasalila gives some clues to Veda. What is real Vedanga Jyotiṣa?
Yeah.
See, for example, using Nirukta, you can understand Veda. Using grammar, you can understand Veda. Using the Śraviṣṭhā Sutras, you understand Veda. That's like the Yajnika and all that.
Yes.
How do you understand the Vedic sky? Lagadha is no good, not for this. Now, Parashara and Vṛddha-garga help, but are they real Vedanga texts? They are. But they may be towards the end of the Vedanga period.
Yes.
Whereas this Mahasalila is hardcore, like Maitrayani Aranika, as you say, it is Veda. This is also there, right sitting there.
Yes.
And the second foreword is in English, whom you know, Professor M.D. Srinivas.
Yes.
He has written an extraordinary bird's eye view of pre-Siddhantic astronomy. As you know, he's
a wonderful mathematician. Yes, thorough, very good.
In astronomy, he has written a very extensive foreword, and why and how Mahasalilam becomes important for history of science, not just for the Sanskrit scholars. They should be interested for the Vedic studies and for history of this country.
Yes.
I'm sitting in America and talking.
History of science.
History of science everywhere.
Everywhere.
But for Bharatam,
yes.
Now there is so much of talk that is happening that we have to retrieve the history before, what happened. You go up to Chandragupta Maurya and then look up and down, don't know what to do. Then you go to Buddhist. Now, all the Buddhistic history has been appropriated, I would say, by others who are very nice people, by scholars, but they are not insiders.
Yes.
Who don't know the cultural implications of this. Now, the Sanaya implication itself is not known. All the lexicons only give Havis. It is a kind of a Havis. You look into Monier Williams, you look into Rath, you look into anybody, even Apte, even Shabdakalpa Durma and all that.
Yes.
I don't blame them. Whatever was there contemporarily, they have collected and given.
But the Mimamsaka approach has helped protect the information. Right now, we can take the.
You see, everything protects the information. But if you want progress, you want to understand, you have to question. Unless you question, you will not get an answer. And it is questioning. In fact, I was when I started this StreamYard, there was a short clip. There was a conversation between Ramanathan and another Pandit. This is in Sanskrit. He talks about Buddhi and how Buddhi develops. When you keep on doing the same thing again and again and again, that itself questions. A new thing comes up. But it is not just the repetition. It should be some opening should be there.
Contemplation, more like contemplation.
There has to be some space. You see, manana nididhyasana. That manana has to be there. You can call it contemplation or whatever. If that manana is there, something will come out. Well, anyway, that is another matter.
Yeah.
Which
So,
shows.
if I may ask, Professor, when is Mahala Salilam going to be published? Did you say? Is it?
Well, I think we have to check with the CSU people. I'm sure they will bring it as quickly as possible.
In the coming few months, I would say. Is that
few months? At least few months it will take.
Okay. So this work is going to fill the gap, like you said, from the Vedic period. Then we have the information. Then we have the Vṛddha-garga information. Then we have the Parashara information. Then later again aspects from Vṛddha-garga. Then we come to Aryabhata and Varāhamihira. So this whole huge, say, 3,500, 4,000 year information, we have some idea of what was happening.
There are still many gaps,
yes,
discontinuities and all that.
That is
one I would like to mention, how the concept that Earth was flat changed to Earth is a globe.
That's an extremely important question. Yeah.
Extremely important question. Yeah. That is one. Second, Venus. What is the position of Venus, Shukra, in the Vedas? There is a word Brihaspati also in the Veda.
Brihaspati and Shukracharya are always against.
You came to the issue.
Yes.
That is in the Puranas. The Purana maintains some of the Vedic legends in a morphed way, like the Soma Chandra Rohini legend, as I told you, in a morphed manner. That we have to untangle that. We have to read the Puranas also. Compare the Puranas. The Puranas are too large, the text, and we have to make meaning out of them. And instead of telling only there are this Vrata, I have to bind this, okay, I also do Raksha Bandhan, all we do. That's all important. But we'll do something beyond, That intellectual thing has to be done.
Yes.
It is the Paravidya and Aparavidya, all that classification, I also agree and all that. Yes. But once you say this is the Vidya, which is the Apara, I have to do it in an Apara way only. Sure. That's the intellectualism. That is available. But somebody has to look into that in large numbers and dispassionately analyze. I'm happy CSU has accepted to publish it, because I was wondering how I can find a publisher for this.
I mean, I think this, in some sense, as people who will watch this, we welcome you to come and join and ask questions and meet with Professor Iyengar, discuss this, and hopefully we'll find more people to join along with this research work.
Thank you. I agree with you on that.
Okay. Sir, I think we are coming to the end of this recording. So I will just recap again, just so that people who will watch this. We started off from the Vedic period. We have given information about Mahasalilam and the amazing information that's there. Then we have again the later on information about Parashara Tantra and the Vṛddha-garga aspects. So this gives a very smooth transition. Of course, there's a lot more details to be filled in. And we see this pre-Arya astronomical observations. So it helps us build out a much deeper and richer history of science in India, and specifically astronomical observations. And anyway, Professor, thank you very much for giving us the time. And then I would also ask all the viewers to please subscribe to Atharva Forum. It's one of those rare channels here which gives you this level of details. So please subscribe, please support this Atharva Forum. The people behind it are extremely hardworking. They give a lot of time as well. So huge thanks to. So Professor, again, thank you for your wonderful time. And I hope it will motivate more people to take up the history of science in India. And namaste. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. To share my views and work with the Atharva Forum. Thank you. Namaste.
I mean, I must say that the work you've done is going to change the whole perception of knowledge, tradition in India. It's an unbelievable work that you have done, you and your students, sir. Again, thank you, and thanks all. Please subscribe to Atharva Forum.